Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Wealthy Lightworker. Today I have Kim Valeri with me. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Colleen. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me on the program.
So Kim, you are a yoga therapy and Ayurvedic counselor. Since 1997, you're the founder and CEO of Yoga Spirit Studios, and you've been known in the industry for over 20 years as a healer and teacher and a transformational lifestyle catalyst. So that's wonderful. And we've got so much to go over today. I'm really excited for you all to hear what Kim has to share, some secrets to her success. And before we jump in, as always, we will take a nice deep breath together. And one more. Okay, now that we are arrived here in this moment, Kim, I'd love to just start off today with just asking you, at what point did you realize that it was your calling to be a light worker and to serve others?
I, like many, never really sought out to be a light worker. And I think there comes a time when we're all called from within to serve the light. And my calling came after I had gone through not one, but multiple car accidents in my 20s. The first one being the worst of them. I was going down a one-way street the wrong way due to road construction, but I look back on that and it became a bigger metaphor for the direction my life was going. And I learned to, the jaws of life had to come and cut me out of the car, and it took 9 years to recover from that. And during that time, I found yoga. It was really a life changer for me and something that began to heal my life and set me free from pain. And in that desire to share it with others, my path was discovered and I was called to it.
Wow. And it's so interesting with those, everyone that I've spoken to and asked similar question, there's always a catalyst that, could be looked upon as negative. But I love that you see it as, a metaphor for your life and something that brought you to who you are today.
And there was a time when I was in the hospital and I was in the emergency room, and I looked at, and I was curious how I arrived in the emergency room, and I looked on the bed and they were trying to revive someone. And when I noticed it was me, I started to spin. And then I was approached by someone who said, "What do you choose, life or death? Because you've been choosing death so far." And that set up a whole flash of why I was on that road the wrong way. But I chose life. And after that, I came out and I remember feeling the oxygen underneath my nose and realizing I was back inside my body. So since about the age of 21, I have always realized that I have been inside this body that I was so grateful to have a second chance at finding freedom and health in. And that really my perception of looking at things had always been from an inner perspective. So when I found yoga, that yoking together to my spirit and finding myself and then learning to exist with transparency from a place of strength, my journey was clear that I was here to serve the light.
Wow. You were 21 when this happened, and
I was 21. And back then, 30 something years ago, because I'm almost 57 this year. So that's a long time to be on the path. But back in the 80s, really, we were a totally different culture at the time. And there weren't very many yoga teachers or yoga studios or gurus or places that you could, go to find answers. so much of what helped me actually was that I had to go inside and I had to direct dial and I had to find those faculties inward that would ultimately help me be more resilient and self-reliant on the journey. Because really the guru is within, and that's what we discover when we're called to being a light worker.
It's beautiful. What an experience. Wow. So bringing us to the topic of this series, and I'm curious, was money always something that flowed easily to you? What's your journey around that been like? I know that's always a loaded question.
That's a very loaded question, right? And I used to say that everything in my life came very, very easy, except for the double M's and money. Money. And so I definitely had karma for both of those. So the first I can share is that, money in my youth was, I never really went without, and I never had, the most. So I think I had a fairly modest, but, normal type of experience. And my parents actually were very much modeled love, a loving relationship. So they made everything look so easy. So when I got into life, it was interesting that relationships always happen as you think they will turn out. So my first husband, my ex-husband, he was a stockbroker, and everything had to do with money. So I did have a period of my time where money was very abundant. But when we got divorced, when my daughter was 4 and I became a single mother, I was ready to forfeit so much just to be able to live from my soul. So I, had a very, very, very tight budget. And as a yogi, it's easy to just kind of really be in the world, but not of the material world. I didn't put a big emphasis on, I had a nice car, but I didn't have to have the best car type of, And as a entrepreneur, money, where I am today, happily married, I've definitely mastered the men and money karma, but it was definitely a journey. And anytime the stock market ebbs and flows, money ebbs and flows. And I think that if we look at it as an energy that will come in abundance and then go out and come back at different times in our life, it's probably a more realistic way to see it as an energy versus something you have or don't have.
I like that a lot because it allows us to kind of, one of the things quotes that I've heard that I love is that debt is a love loan from the universe. And it's just a way for us to sometimes the pendulum does have to swing in that direction. And I think a lot of people, the second they have an ounce of debt, kind of freak out and don't know, and they freeze.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same idea that we practice, I think, in yoga, in spirituality, of having compassion with yourself, having compassion with the process, with the journey, with the flow.
Right.
So, but you have been successful in business for 20 years, since 1997. So I think a lot of people look at that and they think, well, I'd have to get a day job. I'd have to do something else on top of it. How have you been able to stay in business full time for that long?
Sometimes it's amazing for me to even take a look back and realize that the company I founded, Yoga Spirit, would be such a vessel that would carry me through such a long period of time. And, I recall in those early days being in this, what I would say is a is a seed energy around the inception of a business creation, where you can attract to you what you need to get it started. And during those times, and that kind of mystical time when synchronicities and resources were coming, I really saw my business as being my provider, sustainer, liberator, remover of obstacles. It became everything that I could identify with. And it started just with teaching classes because that's what I love to do. And I had so much to share, and I could inspire people, I suppose, through my practice and my giving of my essence and healing. And then I developed a private practice. And that's really where I got to work one-on-one and help carry people through obstacles and burdens and suffering that they were kind of going through. Then my business established and became a studio. And then I became one of the first wave of schools registered through the Yoga Alliance. So the first 20 schools, I was one of those. And I started training teachers, mainly because I needed because I was a single mom, I needed to hire people to teach my classes. And then that grew to multiple locations in a primary training, teach the trainer program, so that I could take my senior teachers who stayed with me for decades actually, and put them in positions of being able to lead trainings of their own. Even branding and trademarking my license and becoming licensed so that I can receive passive income now through those affiliated studios.
So it just kind of has unfolded.
It's unfolded.
Following what felt really good for you. Is that accurate?
Surprisingly, no. It fell together basically because of two factors. One factor was that I was very creative. To respond to the needs of my audience. It's always been this very relational response to the path my business takes. Most of the time, it is students looking for something, and then I can develop a creative way to, supply an answer.
I love that. And, that's something that I've heard a lot recently from different coaches and so forth, that's where they focus, is not so much in, I'll just come up with something and teach it, but it's actually, let's see what my audience needs and wants from me. And, that's what I teach. And I think that that's just a brilliant kind of, like you said, relational way of responding to the needs of your followers, your tribe, and serving in the highest way possible. So that gets a yes. So I'm really excited because you wanted to share a few things, essentially your 3 secrets of longevity and sustainability. So maybe we could talk about those, because I was reading over what you wanted to offer to the audience. And this is, I think, like the meat of this interview, and I'm just beyond excited to jump in.
Okay, I'm excited too. It's wonderful when you've been in business for 20 years, but practicing your art for over 30, that your yoga takes you through many, many, many phases of your own life. And it's especially fun when your age becomes an actual asset instead of a liability. And when we look at yoga and the sister science of Ayurveda, there is a way in which to understand how, from an elemental basis, you exist cellularly using what we'll call air, ether, fire, water, and earth. So that's the elemental language in Ayurveda that describes aspects of our body, mind, and spirit together. So your body can be of one, what we call elemental constitution, and your mind and body along with it can add new dimensions. But all of us have some balance of what we call vata, which is the more creative aspect of our constitution, our pitta, which is our fire. It's the part of us that makes our a leader. We're able to close the deal. We're able to generate the leads. We're able to spread the message. But the vata will help us create the vision and the strategy. Then the kapha part of our nature is really that earth and water that wants a slow, steady, stable, well-structured, well-ordered, systematic business. So if I am looking at my organization, being an entrepreneur inside myself, my vata is my CEO visionary, my pitta is my sales force, and my kapha is my accounting and bookkeeping finance team.
I love this. I love this. This is so huge. Yes, it makes perfect sense.
Because if we're not, if we're imbalanced in any one of those three areas, we either do not have the steam to make the longevity, because we don't have good systems in place and we're not organized, but we have plenty of good ideas.
Yeah.
To make those ideas and actually have the energy to manifest them and to gather the resources and create the leadership and have a plan that's sustainable, you need all of those aspects. So my 3 secrets to my success formula really to have this longevity and sustainability is secret number 1 is to develop and balance these 3 Ayurvedic aspects of your constitution. And in my offer, I am giving an opportunity to download a questionnaire that tells you exactly where you fall in your constitution and where your imbalances are, along with some other promotional discounts and coupons to do work in a transformational makeover work with me, which maybe we can talk about later.
Yeah, definitely.
But knowing your constitution and knowing where your imbalances are, and knowing as an entrepreneur that developing a strategy in all of these 3 aspects is something that is important. Okay, success strategy number 2 is look for strategic partnerships or indirect strategic partnerships. You know, it's really something it's a skill that I didn't really value, because as much as I recognize today is because I really wasn't aware it was a skill to be able to bring people together, to be able to find places to collaborate. And when we are really coming from the place of our pure motive to want to serve the highest good and serve the light, what happens is that we're not looking for coming from a place of greed or self-directed motives. We're really looking at the highest good of all.
Yes.
We want to find collaboration instead of competition. And when you have a balanced constitution, you kind of eradicate that competitiveness out of you and the fear that would otherwise bring you into a starvation mentality, and you can come more from that really steady, stable, abundant place of wanting to create goodwill. And so in my strategic partnerships, everything I do, really, I look for some way to create a strategic partnership, from collaborating. And I'm a former CEO of Kerala Ayurveda Academy, so I got a chance to work through collaboration with that academy, as well as other schools to share resources and profit share. And more recently, I had a first success. This something I had never done before. I got a chance to do just this month, actually. So it's kind of a brand new sharing that I can bring to all of you today. So recently, I had the experience where 2 large yoga studios on the North Shore, wanted me to teach the same program. And whereas they were spaced far enough apart, certain synchronicities resulted, and it occurred to me, I really need to bring these two studios together. And it was profound. They were both graduates of my program from maybe a decade ago. So I had a long-standing relationship, and they really trusted me. And it was beautiful they're beautiful people. And it was wonderful to watch how vulnerable they were about sharing students, and how all of that competitive or vulnerability just went away when they saw the true strength and support that we could give each other by sharing. And so basically we took yoga united two businesses. Now these two studios are finding all new ways to collaborate and help support one another. And I step back and just feel so much joy that, I was able to become a transformational catalyst for them in helping to strengthen how they do their business. So this is what I mean by strategic partnerships or indirect, because that was an indirect strategic partnership. Through them collaborating, I benefited.
Yeah.
I just helped to spark the light.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that, ultimately your goal through all of this is to get to get yoga spread as far and as wide as possible, and to benefit as many people. So any of these collaborations are serving that highest good. So they're always going to be the right thing to do. So that's a beautiful, and I think the win-win mentality is one that we're seeing more and more. In fact, that's a lot of what we're doing here in this series. We're all kind of sharing our tribes with each other. And, clearly you've attracted that, you've manifested that into your life, because this is how you already do business, and it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for sharing that. So I believe that was your tip number 2.
Right.
And we've got one more for our audience.
Yes. So tip number 3 is don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to change, to grow, to recreate your vision, your identity even. Because if you're an entrepreneur in the light working field, we don't report to the Labor Bureau of Statistics that we are a profession that is supported by insurance companies, or degree programs are offered. Wouldn't that be lovely, a degree program offered at a major university to become a light worker?
Okay.
With evidence-based research and more funding, and it's really been more from a grassroots approach. We find our way to good health, because right now there are 26 million people practicing yoga on the planet. And that has gone up 50% since 4 years ago, when there were 15 million people.
Wow.
And the yoga retail business is, I think, a $13 billion industry. So it was up from $8 billion 4 years ago. So we are an organization, or a demographic. However, it's going to take a longer time before we can have sustainable businesses. So we have to be creative as entrepreneurs to understand that there are new technologies, there are platforms. We have to spread our message differently. I can do amazing healing work, but it might come through the guise of doing a transformational makeover. Right? So how we do our work, we have to be creative. And when we think of our brand, so Yoga Spirit has been my brand. It's a brand. It evolved into a type of yoga. It's been a school. It's a vessel that we can shape shift into and spread our message. I think that's important. The other thing that is important too is when you're looking at a business structure, I'm also Kim Valeri Enterprises, but you don't really hear about that. That's kind of a bigger umbrella from which Yoga Spirit is an asset, is a department of, and and all my copyrights fall under it. So there's different structures when you become a business.
Yes.
Business and spirituality have always been like taboo. How do you do business?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do business, or can you do spirituality? And a lot of people have confusion around this. And really, there should be no confusion. There should be no confusion. Number one, I learned when I was a single mom that I needed resources.
Yes.
And I needed resources not from me necessarily, but from my child, And then as I got older and had a student base that saw me as their leader, I needed resources.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for me and my family, but also for my students.
Yeah.
So we need resources, and there's nothing wrong with being resources, especially when we're promoting health and wellness and things that are going to give back, and we should be compensated for these.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Yoga Sutras, the Yoga Sutra 4.34 is a sutra that yogis study that are the fourfold aims of life, and how arta, or livelihood, or the ability to acquire wealth, is one of the fourfold aims. To have our dharma and to have a pleasurable life, so that we feel happy, that we have joy and bliss, that we have wealth, but also liberation from worldliness, because it's really not all about wealth and money.
Yes.
It's really about our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about profits if we're going to eradicate poverty and fear and feel more secure and abundant.
Yes.
Right?
And I love that you brought up that dichotomy, because that's actually what inspired this entire series, was the number of people, and even my own, thought processes around, that it's not okay to be spiritual and wealthy, and the need to just pack that taboo and talk about that. So I just appreciate it so much that you brought that up. And in the Yoga Sutras, it teaches that is absolutely a part of living a full life. And, it's something that I think right now we need more than ever in this world. So
right.
Thank you for sharing that. And I recommend that everyone look into that a little bit further at home for sure. So that brings us, believe it or not, we're almost at our time here, but I'd love to hear more about your free offer. So I know that I know a little bit about my constitution, my Ayurvedic constitution, but I'd love to hear what you're offering again to our audience, and again, you guys can access this right in the email that this interview was given to you in.
Yes, so you can call to action the link that will bring you to my offer, and there will be a downloadable Ayurvedic questionnaire. And when you fill this out, it'll be 4 pages. One will tell you your physical prakriti, or your physical nature, which will be your constitution that will be affected by the various climates, and on a physical basis, what will rule you. But the 3 other pages will tell you a little bit more about your mind-body profile, how your emotions, your habits, and tendency influence that physical prakriti. So I'll have you fill it out, total up the scores. There will be a place where you will see where the imbalances are. And there will be a promotional coupon that you can work with me 2 ways. One, I'm offering a 25% discount on a private session to follow up, to review your constitution quiz, and I can give you some tips and some really, specific things to help bring more balance and success to your constitution. And then I run transformational makeovers, so I'm giving a special offer of 50% off my next transformational makeover, which starts in April. And, ladies have done so well with this, from losing 10 pounds to recreating their look to digesting root causes of emotions that bothered them. If they haven't learned how to meditate or do breathing or yoga, they get an opportunity to work with me on that. It's a 10-week program that includes a detox, spring cleanse, a cell activation, and learning more about your constitution and how to become the best version of yourself, so you too can have a long and sustainable life, making your business an asset for you and all those that come be helped by you.
Kim, that's amazing. And it is such an inspiration to see, you know, how beautifully you've done in business and in life, and all the growth that you can share with us and your wisdom today. Thank you so much for your time. I encourage everyone watching to absolutely try out that questionnaire, take Kim up on that offer, because I know I'm very interested to see where my imbalances lie. So Kim, thank you again, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you. There's 2 ways to get me. So that's kimvaleri.com or yogaspiritstudios.com. Thank you so much for having me, Colleen. It's been
my pleasure. Namaste.
Namaste.